Hi, this is Shelley Siegel, and you are watching Atheist Edge.
So I haven't been an atheist for probably about 5 years now. So when I was in the Air Force, I wasn't a atheist. I would consider myself a Baptist back then.
Okay.
And I read a lot, and I was reading the classics during that time. I read the Canterbury Tales and stuff like that, and I got this book called The Age of Reason by Thomas Paine.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that blew me away. That blew my mind away. It's like, wow, this is a founding father talking about religion.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was just walking on the clouds, and I was just doing I was doing so good. So I was in this office with two other guys, and of course, one of them is what would be called a born again Christian. And then this other guy was probably in the middle, or he was probably a Christian, but he wasn't a out and out, talk your head off about Jesus all day long. And we were talking in the office one day, and I told him about this book. And I said, man, you ought to read this. Not the evangelical, the other guy. I said, man, this is fantastic. I mean, I cannot believe that this guy wrote this 200 years ago. It's fantastic. And the evangelical got like, you need to stop talking about that. You need to stop. You don't need to tell him about this kind of stuff. And the guy left, and that evangelical got in my face. He's like, you're gonna make him lose his soul. I said, man, if God can't take, if God can't
withstand
save him
that
from me, your God's not powerful or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you can't handle Thomas Paine.
Speaking of books, I see up on your shelf.
How does that book exist if God didn't want to hear?
I see up on your shelf you got my books displayed, so I'm going to display. I'm still working on Richard's. I'm almost halfway through it, but I'm taking so many notes. I might
out of frame here, but yeah.
Oh, yep. So.
Oh, I will tell you this one thing about our boot camp. Air Force, San Antonio, Lackland Air Force Base. It was a co-ed building, and some of the guys figured out that the women are right behind another door. So they got the little mirrors, and they put them down on the floor, and they kind of were trying to catch some scenes from behind the door, you might say. I think that's where the Behind the Green Door movie came from.
Or Porky's or Revenge of the Nerds.
Right. Well, I was going to say, it sounds very 80s. Like, when was this?
Those guys like, oh, yeah. Ooh, look at that. Ooh, she just came out of the...
Those are movies you couldn't make nowadays.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's a lot of very disturbing narratives but it's funny, like, it's not just the sex stuff that is a little disturbing from the 80s. Even some of the military stuff. So like, I don't know if this counts as a military story, but one of my favorite movies in the 80s was Blue Thunder. Do you know the show? The movie? Yeah,
it was a helicopter.
Right, it was a military helicopter that was being deployed for riot control in LA. Right, that was the scandal in the movie, was like, oh, how dare we do that? But by it's like, it's a great movie, it's really fun. And then like 10 years later, I'm watching it again, and I'm like going like, okay, where are all those depleted uranium bullets going? They're like, this is horrible. Like, are they like all that they ever, like, tons of scenes in this, like, that's just like, how many people have they killed just randomly, like, for these helicopter battles over LA? And there's a scene where he like gets a heat-seeking missile to hit the solar reflection off of a skyscraper, and I'm thinking like, who was in there? like there's a lot of this is like, oh my God, this is not kosher at all. Like this, I don't know why we thought this was heroic and acceptable. And we're like, yeah, rah, rah. And like, no, this is the collateral damage in this is just completely unacceptable.
Let me,
we just didn't think of those things in the 80s. Like, I think we're more cognizant of that now.
Wait.
And of many other things too.
So some of the things y'all were talking about earlier, it almost sounded like Full Metal Jacket. I mean, does that resonate with you, Jim and Richard?
I mean, my boot camp wasn't irrational and brutal like that.
That peer pressure thing that Tony was talking about, where everyone pays for your mistake, and that is a definite psychological tool that was used in that movie, and that is used. Yes, it is.
There's an important difference between that movie and what we went through. Is like that was the Vietnam era where everybody's trying to get out of the war, so they were refusing to wash anybody out. Whereas, like when I was in, and certainly now, they would wash you out. Like that narrative would not have happened. But there was this sense that no one gets washed out. Everybody goes through it, and so there was this idea that we're going to force everybody.
Coast Guard's got I think it's the highest attrition rate of any of the services.
The second highest. Marines is higher.
Really?
Yeah, boot camp. Well, it was. I should say it was.
I know. As a drill instructor, our job was to try to make them quit.
Correct.
But we had a chain of command over us that was trying for retention, so it balanced out. But
that's right. Yeah.
The highly skilled in the Air Force and the Coast Guard, the skills required and the intelligence level required, I thought that the attrition rate was maybe higher, or not the attrition rate once you're accepted, but the entrance qualifications are probably the most strict.
How difficult is it to get in?
Yes, I think that is the most strict.
I don't know, actually. I know it was difficult, but I was different because I was focused on my thing. I wanted to do the most difficult. So my story was like when I went, I have a weird story about my recruiter. This is a story that will astonish anyone who's been into the military or gone to a recruiter. When I was at the recruiter talking about joining the Coast Guard, and I said, well, I want to live on the ships. I want to work on the ships. And literally my recruiter like took me aside and said, okay, look, nobody wants to live on the ships. And I want to tell you, like, I get a bonus if I get you on the ships. Like, everybody wants Baywatch. Everybody wants the shore station stuff. I was like, are you sure you want to be on the ships? And I was like, yes, I want to be on the ships. How do I guarantee that I'm going to be on the ships? He says, well, all right, I'll tell you how to do that. But that was when I was talking to all my other buddies in the military, like, wow, man, you had the most honest recruiter ever. But yeah, so they said, well, if you can qualify for sonar, that's the hardest. You have to score like 95 on the ASVAB or something. I think it was 90 was to qualify. I scored 95. And they said, if you score that, you have your pick of any rate in the Coast Guard. If you pick sonar, there's almost no positions other than on the ship. So that will guarantee you get on the ships. And so that's what I did. That's why I went sonar, because I wanted to go live on the ship.
FYI, Dr. Richard Carrier, I got a 96 on the ASVAB, and Steve McCrae got a Steve McCrae, he's a nuke tech. He got a 99.
Oh my God. I know Steve. Yeah. I believe that. Right. And I believe it makes sense. You get a 99 and go nuke tech, right?
But anything 95 or above, you write your own ticket. You can pick anything you want, as far as I understood.
Yeah,
but it was the entrance qualifications for Coast Guard and Air Force were the hardest. But once you're in, the attrition might be harder for the Marine Corps. I understand. But actually getting accepted as a Marine, you only need a 31 on the ASVAB.
Yeah, I remember that.
It's second only to the Army as far as.
I thought it was even lower at one point.
Well, you can get. In fact, we would often call our recruits ASVAB waivers, because there is an ASVAB waiver. So if you scored a 28, you could still get in if you met.
Right. So. Yeah, that's what I thought. Right.
Come here, ASVAB waiver. You guys earlier. You guys were talking about. Go ahead.
Ask a question. Did you have a history with on ships before, and if not, did you have any seasickness you had to get over?
Okay, so no, I had never. Well, I think I'd like been whale watching, like something like, but I'd never like done any like serious seamanship stuff before the Coast Guard. And so when I first got aboard the ship, and I was finally, first I was stationed at the base because the ship was at sea, so I had to like be at the base waiting for the ship to come. And so then I get on the ship, and then as soon as I get on, they say like, your first 2 days you're going to be racked out, like you're not going to be able to handle it. But then you'll get your sea legs and it'll be fine. That's what everybody told me, and that was pretty accurate. I was pretty, like the first 2 days I was pretty fucked up. But after that, never again. Like I could handle like the worst seas, and it was not a problem. In fact, we used to. One of the advantages of being sonar techs is we had secret security clearance, and we were the only ones authorized to be in sonar spaces. And of course, the main active sonar is at the bow of the ship, right? So there's this one chamber called lower sound, which is way down, as far down as you can get in the bow of the ship, because right underneath it is the sonar dome. And that had all the electric equipment, and it was basically a workshop. It had a table, it had some chairs and things. And it was a hatch that you come from above, right? So you have to climb down a ladder from the hatch, and above that was the gym, the ship's gym. And so everybody knew that we kept coming and going from there. So it was like this big mystery. So, oh, what's down in Lower Sound? But that was our place to go hide, right? Like we could go down there and like we needed to disappear and didn't want anybody to catch us and make us do work. And even our like superiors would often be on board with this. It's like, just go hide in Lower Sound for a couple hours. And so we just go down there. We would like read. I had a superior, an E1 or E6 who would play guitar. I had an E5 who liked reading fiction, and so we would just be down there doing stuff. I started writing my first book on a little one of those old I'm gonna say it was old brother. It was an old brother word processor, like really old with the with the LCD screen. But so that was the place. But the thing is that in this, even in regular seas, like that shit bucks like crazy. You're in the bow. But even like in high seas, like you hit 0G, like it goes 0G, 2G, 0G, 2G, like that, right? And so you're basically, and you could do this for hours, and we're like, not a problem.
What was it, a frigate or?
It was a cutter, so it was a 378.
Cutters are not much bigger than the captain's gig on the cruiser I was on. They're tiny. I would lose my lunch. Yeah.
Is it like a Corvette or 180 crew, 378 foot. What was your question?
Is it like a Corvette, or is it smaller than a destroyer, or what?
Oh, God.
Smaller than a destroyer for sure.
Think of a tugboat. It's like
he's exaggerating. I don't know what a Corvette. I don't know what a Corvette size is. But it's 180 crew, 378 feet from bow to stern. And we had what you call a Sea Whiz, but it's phalanx. We had a phalanx. We had a 76 millimeter automatic cannon. Right before
Cutters have a Sea Whiz on them.
Yeah.
And also, I was going to ask you. You were talking about depleted rounds on the Airwolf or the Blue Thunder. So we were around depleted rounds all the time and sweeping up casings. I mean, how much radioactivity were we exposed to? Should I be worried?
No, actually, no. The depleted uranium is actually encased, so it's not exposed, right? So it's inside. But
once they fire
so like a firing range cartridges is not so safe. But the thing is that it's a lot less radioactive. That's the point of depleted uranium. It's a lot less radioactive than uranium that you put in a nuclear reactor, for example.
All right. Sorry to get you off topic, but yeah.
But yeah, right. But it is. You don't want to powder it. Like if you hit depleted uranium on the ground and the powder comes up and you breathe it into your lungs, that's super fucking toxic.
Oh, Jesus.
Right. So you don't want to do that. But that's why you don't want to go. You don't want to build a house on a firing range. Like that's just no. but yeah. So So we had the phalanx. We had the 76 millimeter automatic cannon. We had a Tomahawk missile. I think we had 2 Tomahawk missiles. But they were removed before I was stationed there. And then we had a 3-tube torpedo fire launcher off the starboard side. And then we had all the standard armaments, 50 caliber machine guns and all that stuff that we could load out when we needed. But that was it. That was our. And I was a duty gunner's mate, so I actually was the guy who went around to all the magazines to make sure they weren't blowing up. And we would hand out guns to boarding parties. That was the other thing. We would arm people and take the weapons and magazines back. We did a lot of boarding actions because we did a lot of international treaty enforcement and law enforcement and things like that.
I did radar repair on F4s and F-16s. Did you take care of the sonar equipment itself, or were y'all just
you'd have to do everything in the Coast Guard. So we were the operators, we were the maintainers. And then we did a lot of side work too. So I had to go to torpedo school. So I was qualified as a torpedoman, both loading torpedo tubes and loading them on helicopters, because you had to you could set them up with solenoids on helicopters and a helicopter could drop torpedoes. And so we did all of that. We did all the maintenance, we did all the operation. So that was our whole deal.
What was the cone powered by? Was it hydraulics, pneumatics, electricity?
Are you talking about the active dome, or which thing are you talking about?
The dome, yeah.
So we had the active dome. which would be on the bow, the front of the bow below the water. It was powered by, it was electrical obviously, but there were huge crystals, like actual these huge crystals that would vibrate, like it was basically piezoelectric. So like you would, and they would vibrate, and that would create the sound to a very specific frequency that we needed. And dolphins loved that. So the dolphins would come up and swim and try to talk to our sonar dome a lot. But we also did passive sonar. So we had sonar buoys. And those, we could just throw those over the side, or we can have a helicopter go drop them up to 100 miles away, and we could talk to them with radio. And they could do triangulation with passive sonar. And then those sonar buoys, they drop a giant string of microphones that goes down like hundreds of feet. And so you can get sound signals at every elevation in the water, which is important because there's a thing that people don't know about called a thermocline.
Yep.
About 100 feet or more below the surface of the water, where there's a huge change in temperature, which it acts like a lens. So it bends sound hugely. So if there's a submarine below the thermocline, which is where they love to be for this reason, it's hard to tell where they are because the sound reflects, it refracts at that thermocline. And so you would see an image of them, but it's not where they really are. But if you can drop your passive sonar cable of microphone below the thermocline, well, then you got them, because then you can see them. So that's another thing we used to do. We dropped these little tiny metal, they look like bombs. They look like World War II bombs, but they're just little metal things with, like, I think it was a huge amount, like a mile. Mile can't be a mile, but it was like hundreds of yards of coiled wire inside these little things. And you would just drop them, and they would just fall to the bottom of the sea. And as they're going down, they would take the temperature constantly all the way down. And so you'd have a very rapid temperature signal. And then you could be able to calculate where the thermocline is. And so we were like, every few hours, we had to drop one of these all the time, just to tell where the thermocline is, where we are. And so we can work that out. And so we did a lot of things. But in addition to that, when you're stationed on a ship, you have to have multiple duties because their expectation is 80% casualties. So their expectation is we need to have redundancy so we can move people around. So I also had to train as a flight deck firefighter, and I trained as a duty gunner's mate. So those are I had multiple jobs on the ship that I did constantly. And there's a story in my book, Sense of Goodness Without God, where all of these duties lead to sometimes 36-hour days. Because if your duty schedules overlap in a certain way, like, maybe you might get like half an hour nap or something, you don't really get sleep. That's the other thing, is if there's like emergencies, if you're a flight deck firefighter and the helicopter has to go away because there's an emergency call or whatever, you have to get up there. Like, even if it's the middle of your sleep, you have to fucking suit up and get up there and wait there in case the helicopter crashes, And so, so I actually had like some sleep deprivation hallucinations as a result of that. But that was yeah. So yeah, sleep deprived firefighters. That's definitely a military thing.
So do you wish you were you would have taken the Baywatch duty, or?
No, I loved it on the ships. Yeah, I know, it was the best. I would totally do it over again, and I even still have nostalgia for life on a ship a little bit.
How many years were you in?
Only 2. I signed for 4. It was a standard 8-year contract. You do 4 active, 4 inactive reserve. So the 8-year contract stayed at 8-year contract, but they eliminated sonar techs halfway through my tour. So they gave me the option to go to college, get out and go to college, or retrain at a different rate. And I decided to go out and go to college. So I ended up only doing 2 years, and that meant 1 year at sea. So it was 1 year of training and 1 year at sea. And then I got to go home and go to college. And then I ended up Ivy League PhD in ancient history, which I would never have thought that would happen. But people are surprised at my backstory. I have a very unusual backstory. I used to work construction. People don't think that. Come from a poor blue collar background. People are surprised, like, what, you're a Columbia PhD? You're supposed to be some like highfalutin rich guy. I'm like, no, I was just, I've been in the military. I've worked construction. I used to cut fire breaks in the hills. That used to be what I do. So yeah, my backstory is odd. Doesn't really line up with most people's expectations.
I've got 7 things written down just from you guys talking, so I'm going to try to get to a couple of them.
Awesome.
So
right.
just to play catch up, earlier, I think before Tilden got on, we talked about Richard was talking about police forces the blue wall, how they protect each other, and how that's antithetical to an honor. If an honor code did exist with the police force, it should be the opposite. It should be protecting the innocent, not each other. Should be fighting for what's right. And an earlier show I just did with David Smalley, we were talking about basically the same thing. And I didn't know this. He let me know about a specific tactic that all police forces countrywide use, where if you get too many complaints in your jurisdiction, you can get shuffled. Like if you're in LAPD, you can get shuffled to San Francisco and it doesn't follow you. And David Smalley's one of his 13 items on his manifesto for reforming the police is to keep a nationwide database to let that shit follow you, because it's too much like the Vatican now. They can shuffle you around. So I'll just say
that's a really good point. Yeah,
exactly like the priesthood. Yeah.
Yeah.
I brought that up. I said it's oddly reminiscent of the Vatican, and they were like, Courtney and David were both like, yeah, exactly, man. So there's that. Let's see, Tilden, you were talking about, now I ran to get another beer, but I thought you were talking about you had a superior who was really evangelical and how you dealt with that.
It wasn't a superior, it was just another airman, but he was a born again Christian, and I was, I guess, telling this other guy about the age of reason, and it was gonna take him off the path of his Christianhood or whatever.
I'll tell a quick story. When I was in Marine combat training, it's right after boot camp. It's another month of MCT, Marine combat training. So you're a Marine now, but you're fucking boot as hell. I mean, you're the freshest, green Marine there is. I mean, you go straight from boot camp, you go 10 days of leave to go and fuck Suzie, and then you go right straight to Suzie is this mythical female that every Marine is dating or engaged to, Suzie Rottencrotch. So every recruit is going to go home to Suzie Rottencrotch. Anyway, so then you go to Marine combat training. It's a month long. It's up in the mountains and it's field training. Our first sergeant, crazy evangelical. At the time, I wasn't as outspoken of an atheist as I am now. I was kind of an apatheist, they call it. I just didn't care much about religion. And he had every night in his tent, he would have you come over, and he had the slideshow projector, how he was a young earth creationist. And at the time, if I had the brain I have now back then, it would have gotten fun. But I just went and listened to it. And it didn't make any sense to me. I was thinking, this is bullshit, but I never thought to speak up.
Wow.
Yeah, and he had slideshows about how polystrate trees and how carbon 14, carbon 16, dating methods don't work, and the whole standard young earth creationist. Yeah, if I had known then what I know now, it would have been a whole different scenario.
Do you remember his name? You can get him online now.
No way. This was 30 years ago. So there's that. And then, since it's Halloween, I got 5 more, but this is where I'm let you guys. Is there anything while you were serving? It doesn't have to be in the military, but it would be cool if it were anything that during your time that, like something you couldn't explain, something that you thought, that's not paranormal, but that could be. I was out on a ship in the middle of the Pacific. We had just come through the Panama Canal. We were headed to Ecuador. I guess we were near where did Darwin go to and saw all the finches? I guess Galapagos. I guess we were kind of near that area, and I didn't know what bioluminescence was at the time. Yeah. And I smoked back then. I was out on the weather deck. We were running tactical lights, so we were pitch black, looking for drug runners. Right? There was nothing. There was.
Is it in the churn in the wake? Are you looking at the wake? Is that?
I'm on the starboard side weather deck, the smoking area, and the only light is the cherry on my cigarette, and I'm seeing this green, blue. The entire sea's lit up with this bioluminescent algae, right? And there was a sailor out there smoking with me, and I was like, what? I'm freaking out. Like, what is that? That shit. And it just so happened this sailor was the guy no one talks to. They knew his name, and they would say hello to him once in a while. Whenever we port called at a cool, we would be Caracas or Manta, Ecuador, with some really cool places, good party towns, right? He'd never get off the ship. We never could understand why.
Wow.
He never got off the ship. He saved, and he had been on that ship. He was the longest running. You know how each month it's exponentially concurrent. So the longer you stay out to sea, the more money you're making for sea pay.
Right.
It turns out this dude was not a multi. He was at least he was worth over $1 million. The dude was just banking all his sea pay. That's all he was doing. He was thinking about the future, which we didn't think of. We just thought he was.
Yeah. Oh my God. I was so profligate with my money. Yeah. In hindsight, I would have been so much smarter with my money in the Coast Guard.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, like medical, room and board are fucking covered. How did I not walk out of there with like tens of thousands of dollars? I don't know what I was doing.
I walked out with a brick of $9,000 in cash, which looks about like that in 20s. And I was going to buy a Harley Davidson with it, but I had to pay off some credit card bills. You're right.
Seriously, like
one of your own paychecks back then.
This would be the biggest advice I would give to anyone who's giving in the military: is be crazy frugal, save your money, because think of it, you're not paying rent. Well, you might be, but I would advise you just fucking suck it up, live in the barracks, don't pay rent. Don't fucking eat as much as you can tolerate of the food that they provide you. Fucking use the medical to the hilt. Do all of that while you're in, and just save money, because you will not be able to do it, because you'll have to spend all that money on those basic things when you're out. So that'd be the advice I'd give people.
And it just so happened this guy was really science minded, and he explained to me bioluminescence that night, which was really cool.
Nice.
Yeah. So anyway, did you guys have any weird stories or spooky shit?
Well, I did, but I'm curious what Tilden has to say.
Not in the military. I was real close to my grandfather, and then when he passed away, we were walking into the funeral home, and I swear to my feet, it felt like somebody put their arm around me and I knew everything was all right.
Oh, if a Christian's watching this right now, we're gonna get some comments.
You didn't want me to say that?
See, Tilden, this is you. That was your sign, brother. Come to the Lord.
Well, I know what that means now. I was trying to comfort myself, of the loss. I mean, that was the first loss in my family that I dealt with. So it was, and he, close. I mean, I've lost other people in my life, not as close, and that's never happened. So I was just trying to, calm myself down, and this is part of life. So just gonna be all right.
Right. That's exactly what's probably going on, is your brain wants to create those things for you. So I've had two significant, well, I guess three if you count UFOs as paranormal. But I've written about all of these. So my UFO experiences, I have a whole blog on my old blog. So if you go look for the Richard Carrier blogs UFO, I think you'll find it. I wrote a whole article about it. It was totally 100% explicable. There was nothing, but at the moment, before the several steps of reasoning, when you realize oh, that's what's going on right now. Before that happened, you're like, whoa, what the fuck is going on right now? But that's a separate thing. But the supernatural stuff, before the military, I did have a battle with a demon, a very veridical fight with a demon. And it was a classic succubus situation, where it was like a demon sitting on my chest, preventing me from breathing, and I tried to punch it to stop it, and then that resulted in me waking up. And I realized later, of course, that that's a hypnopompic hallucination, which is super common. It's recorded throughout history, and we have tons of science on it. And so, and it has led to the alien abduction mythology too. People, it used to be demons in the Middle Ages, then it was fairies. Now it's aliens, so it's the people, they hallucinate what the culture has sort of created for them to hallucinate in that scenario. But that's one thing. But in the military, I had a really powerful vertical hallucination. And it was one of those occasions where I had 36 hours of waking time of shifts and everything. And the helicopter was away, and I was on the deck of the ship holding a fire extinguisher that I was supposed to stow. But I was really like, I was out on the flight deck of the ship. And it's midnight. It's like pitch night, like, and it's super dark. And it's 200 miles from land, like deep Pacific. So the star field is unbelievable. Like, and it was super clear sky. So it's just like, you've never seen stars like this anywhere, right? Like, 'cause we're nowhere near any city. And so, or anything, any civilization whatsoever. And so it was, and so I'm sleep deprived. I've got this like incredibly awesome situation, a very eerie, uncanny situation that I'm in. And I was highly prone to this because as a Taoist, I often got myself into altered states of consciousness and had strange experiences, but they weren't like necessarily like acid trip experiences, but they were more like cognitive, like intuitive experiences. But this was the one that I had that was very like a real vertical experience. But I felt myself leave my body, and my mind expanded to the entire universe, so that I was simultaneously perceiving all the galaxies and all the stars of the universe and all the planets in the universe, all the different galaxies that had life on them were gleaming green, right? So it's like, and so this was all super realistic to me. Like, I was like, this is actually fucking happening. And so I felt that I had merged with the Tao, that I was seeing the Tao and the Tao's influence throughout the world. And so this would have been like a really confirming experience from Taoism, except that I had been reading a lot of science. And so like afterwards, I realized like, oh, fuck, I just fucking hallucinated. That was a sleep deprivation hallucination. So I was armed with science at that point. So it didn't, like, at that point I was losing my faith in Taoism, despite that being the most powerful religious experience I had. And I had many like that, but not quite that extreme. But yeah, that happened at sea in the middle of my Coast Guard tour on the Sherman, which was the ship that I served on.
You said there was 3? Oh, that was the third one?
The UFOs is the third one.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So UFOs, the demon fight, and when I was a teenager, and then
is that demon
the
fight?
The thing is, you'd mentioned like Christians already write about this. They say, like Carrier fought a demon. He must be possessed by a demon. That was a real demon fight. Like, there's really, like, that happens.
And they discount the scientific explanation for it. Is that
Correct.
related to a lot of people suffer from sleep paralysis where they cannot move?
Yeah, no, that's it. It's hypnopompic or hypnagogic hallucination, which is the as you're falling asleep or as you're waking, there's a moment, a liminal moment, where you're highly prone to hallucination. Your body's still paralyzed because your brain your brain paralyzes you, so that if you dream running, you don't run in your sleep. And so this creates this sort of uncanny state where you can hallucinate anything and you can't tell the difference between dream and reality at that moment, because your brain is in the middle of figuring out whether it's awake or asleep. And it's like, if you're dreaming, you're dreaming. If you're awake, you're awake. But there's this moment between sleep and awakeness where your brain can get confused. And it can be extremely realistic as to what it presents to you. You anything you dream, you believe is real, and it becomes highly veridically, viscerally real to you. Yeah, there's a lot of science on this. You can check it out and research it.
When I was a preteen, I was staying the night over at a friend's house. I was on the couch. He was sleeping on the floor. The TV had already gone to static. Kids, so for those of you that don't understand, like, TV stations weren't 24 hours back then. They'd play the national anthem and it'd go to static.
Well, static isn't the thing anymore either, because it's all digital now.
Right. Exactly. So, they don't know what static is, and they
so
don't
even
understand.
if they go dark, it's just a black screen.
Yeah.
So people don't know what static is anymore. They don't know what
unless they see the movie Poltergeist.
Right.
Yeah.
Even then, they might be confused. Like, what's that? What's that?
Yeah,
going
exactly.
on? What's going on there?
And which is the cool part is, if you don't get to, now you can tune, if you put the rabbit ears on and you go to actual broadcast TV, And you can actually pull up static on your TV now just to look at it. And for those of you that don't know, 3 to 5% of that static is actually cosmic background microwave radiation from the Big Bang. You're watching the birth of the universe in that static, which is pretty cool. Anyway, we were asleep we had watched Monty Python and then Benny Hill's right after that. And Benny Hill back then was our only source of seeing scantily clad females. So you can't miss Benny Hill. But we fell asleep after that. I went to static. I kind of like woke up and I felt I had a cold coming on, or I was sick. I had some mucus in my eyes and I saw a ghost. It was a woman in, like white, like a long negligee, sleeping clothes. She was floating horizontally in front of the TV and she was looking at me, and she was about my age. She was 13 or so. And she was just smiling at me and looking at it. I always attribute that to, from being kind of sick, I had mucus in my eyes and pareidolia. Maybe I saw something in that mucus with my eyes, but it looked so real to me. And the sleep paralysis, I couldn't move. I was forced to just sit there and watch her floating in front of that TV for a while.
That was a hypnagogic hallucination. Yeah. Cause that's, you're just waking up. There's a lot of documentation on this, so it's been studied extensively. It's fascinating.
Next thing, okay. Tilden said no, Richard, you were a gunner's mate also. So a lot of people think
duty gunner's mate, which is different.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm telling anyone listening that whatever your primary MOS is, mine was electronic surveillance and code breaking in languages, right? But I had 4 other AMOSs, additional jobs that we do. And I was a martial arts instructor trainer. I taught people to become instructors to teach others martial arts.
Okay.
I was an intelligence analyst, a drill instructor, fucking something else. I forget. Anyway, so I had additional duties. And so you get pulled to do that. And so when I was on, what was I? It couldn't have been the Dallas. That's a nuke sub. I was on the Dallas for a while. I was on the USS Wasp for a while. It must have been the Gate. It was that guided missile cruiser. Chasing drug runners. So the quick story on that, I was an acting gunner's mate. I was just feeding the belt on an M60. And anyone who's active duty right now, an M60 is now, they don't.
Do they still use those?
No, they don't.
Yeah.
I think it's the M240 Golf. Or there might be something even newer than that.
It's whatever belt-fed machine gun uses 7.62, right? So
no,
as opposed to the SAW, which is 5.56, right? So
that's right. So yes, the M60 was 7.62.
Yeah.
And the M249 Golf is at 7.62. Anyway, I was just feeding the belt. So we're chasing drug runner. We go lights out. We got a helicopter in the air. He's doing the FLIR, which is forward-looking infrared.
Yeah.
You can go back and look at the tapes later and you can see the whole, whatever you're seeing right now, you're not seeing shit. All you're seeing is as we're chasing these guys, we're this giant ship and we're chasing this little cigar boat with maybe 5 guys on it. Yeah. They're way faster than us. We're just trying to keep up.
Yeah, they could probably do 60 to 80 knots. You could probably maybe do 30.
We're just trying to keep up with them.
Right.
We can't see them, but we can see the chem lights that they're throwing in the water. Why are they throwing chem lights in the water? Because they're also throwing their dope out in case they know they might get caught. So they're throwing their dope out, but they're throwing chem lights with it so they can go back and check it and get it later. But sometimes we're throwing chem lights on top of their chem lights so we can go back and get it later. Now, cocaine will sink in about 30 minutes. So if we don't think we can catch them, we'll spin around and we'll scoop up all the dope. But if it's marijuana, we're going to keep chasing them because that shit floats forever. But so we're chasing them and we get the word authorized to fire 2 warning shots across the bow. I was like, oh, here we go. Here we go. He goes, this corn-fed Nebraska, who I forget his name, but he 2 shots across the bow. And so we didn't see we just saw a big explosion. Long story short, everyone survived. We didn't see any, we just saw a big bright flash of light and then we went and scooped them up and out of the water, right? The next day we went and looked at the the helicopter's forward-looking infrared, the recording of it, because you can see just like it's daytime, basically.
Yeah.
They had turned into the warning shots, just narrowly missed them, just punching holes in the side of the boat. And one of the tracer rounds hit the the outboard engine. That's what caused the explosion. And one of the guys, you see him like flipping in the air, 30 feet in the air, just doing this.
Wow.
Into the water. I
Hey,
can't believe everyone survived, but they're all 3rd-degree burns. They're covered in tape and bandages. But we brought them onto the ship. It was, what was I talking about? I have no idea.
I do not know. Supernatural experiences, Richard.
I know. How did it get to this? Oh, I'm so sorry.
You were talking about all your different jobs.
Oh, the different jobs. Yeah, you're saying that I had many duties. I was a sonar tech, a flight tech, firefighter, a duty gunner's mate, and you were all these other things. And that's how you ended up feeding a belt.
As long as I'm off on tangents, I might as well get through the rest of my notes. Coast Guard. What did I put here? Mike. Big. I can't.
Jeez, can't read your own notes.
I cannot read my own handwriting. Oh, getting seasick. So yeah, you had some you had to have had some sea legs being on a cutter.
2 days. The first 2 days.
Yeah.
After that, never again. Yeah.
The longest I was out
I'm totally immune now.
Longest I was underway was 4 months. Every day of it, I was violently ill. I had to work through that. I just had to learn to. Yeah, being a Marine, you think we're Department of the Navy. We're part of the Sea Service. We should have good sea legs. Some of us don't. I was popping Dramamine, and I had a pussy. It's called a pussy patch. It's like, I guess, a Dramamine patch every day.
Yeah.
I'd go down and get it every day. And I sometimes I wouldn't even sleep in the berthing. I would just sleep in the SCIF in the secured area, just on the cold tile. For some reason that helped. But yeah, I was puking over the deck the entire 4 months. Never got my sea legs.
Oh my God. No, that's hardcore. I can't even imagine. Yeah. No, I became massively immune. Like I was saying, like we could be in that like extreme bow situation for just hours at a time and no effect. We were fine. Did we lose Tilden?
Tilden. Oh, he's frozen.
Yeah. I'm here.
Your video is frozen.
No. Yeah, because I'm moving around, I think.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine, but your video is frozen. All right, let me get to 2 more and then hold on. Let's see. Oh, that might be that might open a can of worms. Oh, you and Tony were earlier talking about in recruit training, sometimes it seems like, why are they doing this to us? It's just causing us confusion. And sometimes causing confusion is the point to get you under an intense stress that's difficult to, or impossible demands that you can't meet. And another funny story is I was on the phone to my wife. I've been in the duty hut. I'm the drill instructor on duty. Recruits are out there. They're going through they get 1 hour to get ready to hit the rack, right? So they're preparing, they're getting all their shit squared away for the next day. And I just got in the habit of every once in a while just calling one to the duty hut door. Recruits so-and-so, Recruit Smith. And they pound on the hatch 3 times. Recruit Smith, hi, sir. Manama dog face to the banana patch. Do it right now. All right. Sir, recruit. Manama dog face to the banana patch right now. Do it now. And I would talk gibberish to the, get in the tree in the wash rack in the backyard right now. Do it now. You got 5 minutes. Just to fuck them. At the time, I looking back at it, drill instructors are not psychologists. Most of the time, we're just doing it to fuck with them. But decades and decades, hundreds of years, but you learn it from other drill instructors. And at some point, someone had to have known this is what works. Now, your average drill instructor doesn't know that what he's doing is effective. He just knows it's effective because the drill instructor before him did it. That is effective for getting them into this stressed out situation that's impossible to complete the mission. Yeah, that was my.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. My drill instructor, we call them TIs, training instructors, but
same with the Air Force, right, Tilden?
Yeah.
TIs.
TIs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Air Force is TIs also.
No,
Yeah, no, they explained the purpose of everything. So they were that was I found that very valuable. Like explaining like this is why we're doing this to you. First they do it to you, but then they explain why they do it to you. But yeah, all of that shit, all the fucking with you and all of that.
Yeah, but
this has a purpose.
Your running shoes, we call them GoFasters. There's no reason to call them GoFasters. There's no training value in that. Our flashlights, we make them call them Moonbeams. There's no training value. A lot of things are just, not everything has training value. Some of it's just to fuck with your head or get you to think about different nomenclature. There's no reason not to call it a flashlight. But in the Marine Corps, they're called Moonbeams for no reason whatsoever.
Well, it's all to create the abstract experience of you have to start using different nomenclature. You have to there's abstract reasons for all of this that gets you familiar with it. And like I mentioned before, like it does test whether you can handle this strange environment, because this is the environment you're going into. You need these skills to handle these weird things. So it's not the specific, like if you focus on the specifics of what's going on, you're missing the lesson, right? You want to get the abstract lesson, like what is the skill I need to deal with this? That's the skill I need to deal with a ton of other things. That's what they want to teach me. And like I said, my TI like would explicitly tell us this, and I found that very valuable, and it made it easier to say like, yeah, I got to fucking tough this out. I get it. I understand the point. And so it made it easier to learn the lesson, and it made it easier to like find the courage and the stamina and the discipline to do what they're asking of you, basically.
So there is value in getting you out of your comfort zone. I guess you could chalk that
up.
All right. Whenever I'm on the road, I used to be an Uber driver for 3 years, Uber and Lyft driver. Even if I had a passenger in my car, if there was a car or a truck on the side of the road that had a Marine Corps sticker on the back or a Marine Corps license plate, I'd pull over and see if they need help or a ride into town to get some gas, whatever. Anytime I'm out, anytime there's a chance I can help a fellow Marine, I'm doing it. And other Marines do the same thing. I go to PTSD therapy every Wednesday on Zoom. Well, it's on Zoom now, but it's a group therapy. We're always calling each other. Hey, checking up on each other. How you doing? No one told us to do that. This is group therapy, but the doc, we talk to him directly. We're hooking each other up on the side too, texting each other, checking in. Right now I'm thinking that level of bond is unique to the Marine Corps. I think it still exists in the other 4 services, but I don't think it's nearly as strong. And I wonder why that is. Yeah. And like Tilden, a fellow airman right now, would you treat him any different than any other stranger? And Richard, a fellow Coast Guardsman?
Well, I mean, I do recognize the Air Force emblems and stuff like that on the cars, and I would think it would probably be any military really. I would probably want to help them if I could, but I would probably not stop, and that's from my upbringing. I did that one time. I stopped on the side of the road and helped somebody. It was only like maybe a mile from the house, and I got home and my mom asked me what took me so long. And I told her. She's like, "Don't you ever do that again. You don't know if there's a thief or he's just killed somebody or wow. He's mass murderer. They're just waiting for you. That you shouldn't be doing that ever again."
That's interesting. Where was that at that time? Where were you in the U.S.? Like,
there's a town not too far from here called Springtown. That's where we were living. That was a rural metroplex area.
Okay, that's interesting. Because I've had, it's weird. I've had kind of like the opposite experience. I would say like most of I would say mountain territory. Like, so whether it's Ohio or California or whatever, mountain culture is, I guess is different than, so in mountain culture, the idea is like, okay, there might not be anybody else passing this person. I need to help this person because fuck, if it was me, I would want someone to help this person. So like mountain culture is really helpful. Like people will stop, they will go out of their way to like help you do anything. And I like that. Like that's a true evocation of neighborliness. But I have seen the opposite view. Like usually it's urban or suburban attitude is like, oh no, that's exactly what you're describing. Like, oh, they might be evil or whatever. Like, don't pull over and help them. And it is a very different culture. So I have noticed that. But in response to your question originally, like I have a certain feeling of camaraderie for veterans. I have certain respect for veterans for that reason, but I do not have like the thing that the Marines have is you're right, it is very unique. I've seen it many times. Like the Marines have cultivated this culture of brotherhood. Almost like they haven't explicitly gone to the level of like early Christianity, which is we are all now literally brothers. It's not quite that extreme, but it kind of has evoked a similar atmosphere, this idea of fictive kinship, that actually is my family, right? So like I think the Marines have done that, and I think that's a part of the culture of their boot camp, the culture of their service. I think that's something that Marines have cultivated that the other services didn't have.
I thought you were going to segue into Galatians
Yeah,
1:14.
I would say the Marine Corps is not as large as the other forces. I would say they are a specialized unit. You might say y'all go in first usually. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you have to have your back. Now
I think that's probably why. Yeah,
I have stopped to help people that are on the side of the road, but usually it's been a person laying on the road. I have stopped and I thought somebody was dead. And I put my truck in front of them so nobody would hit them, just to find out that they were drunk. But I mean,
well, is there ever a time that you would pass by an Army license plate, but if you saw the Air Force wings, that you would pull over? Is there any time that you would distinguish?
No, like I told Richard, any military really, I would.
Yeah, me too.
Stop for.
That's so weird. And Richard says Tilden says it's maybe because we're a smaller unit, and so that makes it tighter. I almost think that it's a process of a stricter indoctrination. It has to be a product of indoctrination during recruit training. That's
versus them.
I mean, yes, obviously, like it's a culture that they have specifically cultivated. I mean, that's the only reason it would exist. But the deeper question is why? How did that happen historically? Why is the Marines like that, not the other services? And I think Tilden is right. Like I think it's that for the longest time. I mean, it's become less so now, but the longest time, the Marines were the unit, the force that we put in the shit first all the time, right? So you had to have this cultivated. These are all your brothers. You need to stand by them. That was important culturally for the units to work effectively all the time, like at the slightest moment of because the Marines at any moment could be like in the shit. Whereas if you're Army, like it's got to be like there's got to be a declaration. Well, it used to be the case. So there's got to be a declaration of war. Like there's got to be a lot of steps before you're actually going to be in the shit. And I think the Marines were the ones who were always being deployed this way, and so they did learn to cultivate this culture. And I think that's why that's happened historically. Now, it's happened that over the last 20 years, the way we use the military has completely changed. So I don't know if that's going to result in any changes in the culture of the other militaries. It might not, because of they might be locked in the way that they've been always doing things is the way they're going to do things. The Marines might have benefited from the fact that it has always been the way that it's operating.
My fellow Marines that are watching this, plug your ears. We're not needed anymore. 21st century warfare.
No, wait a minute. You think about it. Space Force is now a new branch.
Yeah,
I mean, what better to send out into space than a jarhead? I mean, come on.
It's gonna happen. Well, and it's already been envisioned in Aliens, the movie. We have Space Marines. It is a fucking thing in the movie. Yeah. And culturally, in that fictional context, is exactly what would happen. It's like we need to throw people on a ship, take them to a place, go do some fight thing because there's some fight thing we have to deal with. It's gonna be the Marines. That's what's gonna happen.
Our skill set is not that steep of a learning curve, so you could cross-train people that had other jobs on a spacecraft, because there's an efficiency factor to get them into space.
It's just like a sea ship. I mean, it's right, or like a submarine. It's more like a submarine, I would say.
Yeah, it doesn't take a nuke It doesn't take a nuke tech. You could teach a nuke tech how to pull a trigger much easier than the other way around. So specialized space Marines, I just don't see. We're irrelevant at this point. We could just as easily get absorbed into the army as a specialized amphibious corps. It should have happened a long time ago. The only reason we still exist is because America needs us. They need that symbol. They need something about us with the honor code and all that shit. And we look fucking sexy in our dress blues. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, that's true. Although I think it should go the other way. We have a much more increasing need for special forces. That's the shift where we are. The Marines is perfectly positioned to just take the entire force and turn it into a special force. Like we that could be done.
Well, then we absorb the SEALs and we stay relevant. We absorb the SEALs and SOCOM and everything.
It's got to be something like that. I think long term.
Think about it this way, Jim. I mean, you're not going to stop bullets now. You're going to stop phasers.
I hate to tell you, but like speed of light. There's a speed of light travel thing. And so when you see actually phasers, when you can see them with the naked eye, that's not accurate.
Right, yeah. No, there's actually, people don't know about, we've already invented the defenses against laser weaponry. So there's a material, it's a hypothetical material. It's not actually been made, but we know how to make it if we needed to. It's in fiction called LASAB, but the idea is laser ablative. Is that when a laser hits it, it vaporizes, and the vapor can absorb the energy of the laser, so that most of the energy just heats up this plasma in front of whatever it is you're protecting. So you could have laser ablative armor. It's kind of like reactive armor, if you know anything about like reactive armor in tanks nowadays. But it would completely neutralize the effectiveness of the laser, unless the laser is super powerful. Which we're getting to, like the German army, or I guess Navy, I don't know, whichever. The Germans are going to be the first to deploy. No, it is Navy. Yeah, the German Navy is going to be the first to deploy mainstream laser weaponry on naval craft. It's gonna just be a standard part of their armament. So
lasers as a kinetic weapon. Wow. I have personally used lasers in a combat zone. Here's my story. I wasn't even going to tell this.
Okay, I got to hear this. Okay. Yeah.
So anytime we're in a convoy in Iraq, there's rules of engagement and escalation of force. ROE and rules of engagement, EOF, escalation of force. So, and it's burned into our memory. See, it's been so long, I would fuck up now. I'd have to really refresh. But I mean, for the guys on the ground, I mean, it's muscle memory. They don't even have to think about it. So usually it's whoever's in the 50 caliber in the gunner's turret and the lead vehicle, right?
Right.
The lead vehicle.
Yeah.
Whoever's in the gunner's turret, he's got semaphore flags, actual like semaphore, like fucking red flags, not semaphore, but just red flags. The Iraqi citizens have been pre-briefed. Any major city in Iraq or Afghanistan, anywhere we occupy, they've been briefed on this through literature and propaganda, and their governments telling them, hey, listen, here, when you see a U.S. convoy come by, you're supposed to pull over and give them the right of way. So if let's say there's a white Toyota pickup. I don't know why it's always a white Toyota pickup, but he's always barreling towards us, right? We don't know who's in there. It could be military-aged males with AKs. It could be a woman on her way to get. Well, women aren't ever unattended. Sharia. So they've got a brother or a father with her. But anyway, they come barreling towards us, and they're not getting over on the side of the road. And this all happens within 7 to 10 seconds, Richard. That's right. Tilden. Yeah. This has to happen this fast. 7 to 10 seconds. Here's everything that takes place. The headlights go on and off to let them know, hey, we're a convoy. The flags are waving. All right. Couple seconds later, we have this. It's tripod mounted. I don't know. Somehow mounted on the up armored Humvee, but it's not a weapon. It couldn't burn a hole through anything, but it is exponentially more powerful than your laser pointer, and it's green.
It's a heat ray?
No, it's not a heat ray. It's just designed to blind them.
Oh,
So, yeah. So they turn on the laser and they just put it all over the windshield.
right.
And 9 times out of 10, and I've seen it. I mean, it usually stops right there because they roll off onto the gravel or into the desert. That'll put them right there. But if for some reason they don't, somehow maybe they got really thick sunglasses. I don't know if they can avoid the big powerful. I mean, this thing, it's awesome, right?
Uh-huh.
And then the next steps are ground, grill, kill. Ground, grill, kill. That's the warning shots with the 50 cal on the ground right in front of them, and then you take out the engine, and if it still hadn't worked, you put it through the windshield.
Yeah.
But all that's within 7 to 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And I've seen I've seen that scenario played out every possible way. Just FYI.
Okay.
Oh, so yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like we need American police to be taught some of these things.
Rules of engagement.
Frankly.
David Smalley has 13.
Well, they would be different. There would be different rules of engagement here.
Oh,
but
definitely.
Yes,
but
they need
just rules of
they need a
engagement in
protocol.
general. Yes.
Yeah.
David Smalley's 13 points on how to reform the police are all about that. And they're just cogent as shit. And if we could get on board with that, this whole defund the police movement and fuck the police and everyone would be kumbaya around a campfire if we could employ these. Yeah. Everyone would be on board with this, the left and the right.
I believe it. Yeah. There are it's clear there is a huge training problem. Like even as a military person, oh my God. Like when I hear these stories and I hear it, like I swear there's countless examples of these stories where there's like 17 bullets, 30 bullets fired. And I'm like, why did you go beyond 2? I don't even understand what the hell is going on. Like how incompetent are you? Like as a military person, like you're taught, like fucking two good shots and you're done. Like why even fucking waste? Why are you still firing? You're wasting ammo. There might be like 50 other people coming at you. You're gonna waste 17 bullets on one dude, right? Like, and this is what our cops are doing. Like they're like just savagery, like this hail of fire. And I'm like, why? Like, who is training you to do this? This is not even sensible. There was an example just recently with the knife, the guy who was mentally disabled or mentally ill, and he had a knife. He wasn't even specifically threatening anyone, and they've shot him. I don't know how many times. There's like a huge number of times. And multiple witnesses are saying like the first bullet put him down, right? It's like what? I don't understand. Like I really, like as a military person, I don't understand. Like that would never be tolerated for us to like put 17 bullets in a person. So like, why didn't you shoot once and evaluate? Like, or twice at most. And so like, there's no like thinking. I think there's no thinking about what are we doing? There's this panic fire. And it feels very much like a very green military person. There's no training, is not following orders, and is doing exactly the wrong thing. Like every fucking, unit leader would be dressing them down for this behavior.
Precisely.
But no one's dressing them down. They're just doing it, and they're like,